Okay, sorry about that. Um, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So I was talking about men have the X and Y. So Fragile X is on the X chromosome, and they measure the number of repeats in the mutation. Over 200 repeats is full syndrome, and you can Google it. It's there's a lot to read about, but basically, Fragile X is a disease or disorder, genetic mutation that causes intellectual disability. It's the only known um, genetic form of autism that they have found, or from what I read, which I might not have read everything. And it causes learning disabilities, ADHD, behavioral issues, in women, early menopause, ovarian failure, men, some tremors as they age, whatever. I don't have symptoms of any of that except in the past few years, I have noticed that I lose my train of thought a lot, if you haven't noticed in these videos. And I always just thought it was being on all these medications for so many years and all the time. I was never not on them, basically. And it could be a combination of both. It could just be age. It could be lifestyle, so busy. But anyway, so over 200 repeats is full mutation, and 55 to 199 is considered pre-mutation. So I came in at 56, and you might think, great, that's low, and it is. However, they haven't found a correlation between the number of repeats and symptoms. So someone like me at 56 could have no symptoms, but then someone else with the repeat of 56 could have all of the symptoms. Um, and the the repeats expand with every generation. So, my mom who has the premutation as well, we ended up testing our parents after, um, passed it down to me, and she could be at 50, and then I'm at 56, and then my children are at 58, and it doesn't expand very much with each generation. But so that's that. We did test my parents. My mom is the carrier, but she also came in at 56, so it didn't expand from her to me. And then we did an additional test to see how many interruptions in the expansion I have. I mean, in the repeats, and I had one interruption. And the equation they came up with, the formula they came up with that one interruption, there's less than 1% chance of it expanding into full syndrome. Um, so that's that. And so there's many options you have to look into: donor egg, genetically testing your embryos, and all that. We couldn't agree as a couple, a family, on donor eggs. I wanted a known donor. Brian wanted an anonymous donor. So we decided no donor. And then we were going through the process of interviewing labs for the genetic testing. And one of the things that was said to me by one of the labs was that a female embryo, so a female carrier, they would discard, or they would suggest discarding. And if I was an embryo, I would have been discarded. If my mom was an embryo, she would have been discarded. So I had that in my head the whole time. And it didn't settle right with me. So we talked to our care team, our physicians and the genetic counselors, and discussed what our options were. Do we have to discard them? And I said, if we found that they could potentially have the premutation, I could never discard them. And a friend of mine said to me, like, please, it sounds like or it feels like you're playing God a little too much. And I agreed with that point. Not with not with the process, or I just, that was me. I would have been thrown away. And it didn't settle right with me. I just didn't feel right. So, with everything, with my low repeat number, the interruption, the lack of expansion from my mother to me, we decided to move forward and use my eggs and transfer a healthy embryo and see what happens. We also have to take into consideration that we had Mark, who is of our genetics, and we didn't test him. We're not going to test him. It was suggested that we not test him because they said even if he has the premutation, he may never have symptoms, and normal development things we might fault for the premutation when he's really just a normal 2-year-old or a normal 3-year-old. We did have him evaluated by early intervention, and he was age appropriate or advanced in every aspect of the evaluation. So we'll continue to watch him. I think he's okay. If he does have it, I think he's fine. So anyway, but you should look it up. It's Fragile X. Oh, and the other thing is that's important to know. My other X chromosome was totally normal at 30. So there's a 50% chance that our children would get my good X chromosome. So anyway, that is that. I did, when I went to answer my door, I have to scratch my eye, sorry. When I did go to answer my door, I had checked my emails and I got my reports. So I can't believe how tired I look. I feel so crappy. Looking at it right now. So my estrogen came in at 738, so it's still nice and low, which gives me time to continue stimming. My right ovary had 4 measurable follicles ranging between 12 and 13. 2 12s, well, 11 and a half, a 12. So 2 11 and a halves, a 12, and a 13. And then my left ovary had a 13 and a half, a 13, a 12 and a half, a 12, and 11. So we're at 9 measurable, which is really low for me, actually. I usually have a lot more than that at this point, but whatever. There's nothing I can do about it. Maybe that's my symptom. Maybe I'm in the early stages of ovarian failure. But my FSH and my AMH have been great, and that's one of the things my doctor kept saying. Like, we had no symptoms, no indications that I should even be tested for that. It just so happened we did this Good Start Genetics panel, which I am a huge advocate for, especially if you're unexplained. But I don't think it matters if you have an explanation or not. I think everyone should get this panel done. It was covered by my insurance. My parents' insurance covered theirs as well. My sister's insurance covered hers. She does not have it, nor does my dad. So anyway, that is that. This was a long one. I'm gonna go pick up the boys from school and hopefully have an early bedtime tonight. So I go back on in 2 days. I can't even think what day it is right now. So I go back in 2 days, so we'll see where we go from there, but I'll check in tomorrow. Okay, bye.